Respected viewers and listeners, Salamun Alaikum. Today I am going to discuss the religious and cultural heritage under the international law and with relation to Jannatul BAQI and other religious sites of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Jannatul BAQI, the cemetery of Medina, is the first exclusively Muslim burial ground in Medina. Located to the southeast of Masjid-e-Nabawi, the word Baqi means a plot or tract of land that contains a mixture of plants. The area between Jannatul BAQI and Masjid-e-Nabawi is known as Bain al-Harmain and used to contain the houses of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam as well as marketplace. Now these no longer exist and have been replaced by a white marble plaza. Anyone can now see the eastern exits of Masjid al-Nabawi from the entrance of Jannatul BAQI. Nearly 7,000 companions of Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam were buried in Jannatul BAQI, not to mention those of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam like Hazrat Fatima Zahra salamullah alaiha, Imam Hassan ibn Ali alayhi salam, Imam Ali ibn al-Husayn alayhi salam, Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam, and Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. This cemetery has been demolished twice by forces loyal to the Wahhabi Saudi alliance, first in 1802 and later on in 1925. History and heritage. History and heritage are two words that always go together. History is the study of the past, and heritage refers to the valued objects and qualities such as historic buildings and traditions that have been passed down from previous generations. The heritage is what we have inherited from the past, to value and enjoy in the present, and to preserve and pass on to future generations. Heritage is the full range of our inherited traditions, monuments, objects, and culture. The research and rigorous empirical humanistic study of the past is and will always remain the foundation of heritage activities. A change to a more holistic vision of the material remains of the past is surely coming, and it demands both international cooperation and a far-reaching interdisciplinary approach. The heritage preservation and interpretation can play a constructive role in the social evolution of nations, regions, and local communities. The identity of a nation, region, community, or a group lies in its past and its historical and cultural heritage, which is unique to that group or society and reflects the rich and diverse creations of humankind. The cultural heritage is community or group's language, books, literatures, rituals, knowledge, traditions, performing arts, craft, festive events, monuments, and sites of historical relevance. It is therefore our moral and civic duty to preserve, conserve, and protect our cultural and historical heritage. Heritage is important because it helps to shape the identity that what we are. The expression of this identity shows others what we value and highlights our values and priorities. The heritage provides clues to the past and shows how the society has evolved. It helps us to examine the history and traditions and enables us to develop an awareness about ourselves and our past. It helps us to understand and explain why we are and the way we are. Heritage is a keystone of the culture that plays an important role in the politics, society, business, and worldview. It informs, influences, and inspires public debate and policy both directly and indirectly. It is our responsibility and duty of the communities and society to take responsibility for the for and participate in the development and conservation of the heritage. Projects to heritage have the potential to re-energize neglected areas and provide opportunities for the people to review, re-engage with and reinterpret their heritage. The projects of heritage help to generate a greater sense of pride and belongingness to the area. Maintaining and enhancing the heritage provides a basis for economic development and innovation in tourism, agriculture, entertainment, education, and business generally. April 18th every year is marked as World Heritage Day. The theme for the Heritage Day of 2021 was Complex Pasts, Diverse Future. This not only highlights the urgency to preserve, conserve, and uplift the legacies of monuments and cultures, but also the desperate need to critically analyze, comprehend, and recognize the diversity around us. United Nations educational, social, and cultural organizations concept about heritage. Heritage is our legacy from the past, what we live with today, and what we pass on to future generations. Our cultural and natural heritage are both irreplaceable sources of life and inspiration. Cultural heritage is a concept which offers a bridge between the past and the future. And cultural heritage is maintained in the present and presented for the benefit of future generations. The cultural heritage have the outstanding universal values, unique and irreplaceable, and belong to humanity and require protection or conservation. The basic principle about heritage is that the world heritage belongs to all the people of the world, irrespective of the territory on which they are located. Convention concerning the protection of the world cultural and natural heritage was adopted by the General Conference of UNESCO on 16th November 1972. The World Heritage Convention aims to promote cooperation among nations to protect heritage around the world that is of such outstanding universal value that its conservation is important for current and future generations. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has also accepted this convention. The object of the convention clearly states that, considering that in view of the magnitude and gravity of the new dangers threatening them, it is incumbent on the international community as a whole to participate in the protection of the cultural and natural heritage of outstanding universal value by granting of collective assistance, which, although not taking the place of action by state concerned, will serve as an efficient complement thereto. Article 1 of the Convention defines that the following shall be considered as cultural heritage. Number 1, monuments, architectural works, works of monumental sculpture and painting, elements or structures of an archaeological nature, inscriptions, cave dwellings, and combinations of features which are of outstanding universal value from the point of view of history, art, or science. Number 2, groups of buildings, groups of separate or connected buildings which, because of their architecture, their homogeneity, or their place in the landscape, are of outstanding universal value from the point of view of history, art, or science. Number 3, sites. Works of man are the combined work of nature and man, and areas including archaeological sites which are of outstanding universal value from the historical, aesthetic, ethnological, and anthropological point of view. The Article 6 of the Convention says that while fully respecting the sovereignty of the states on whose territory the cultural and natural heritage mentioned in Article 1 and 2 is situated, and without prejudice to the property right provided by national legislation, the state parties to this convention recognize that such heritage constitutes a world heritage. Repeat, such heritage constitutes a world heritage for whose protection it is the duty of the international community as a whole to cooperate. The state parties undertake, in accordance with the provisions of this convention, to give their help in the identification, protection, conservation, and presentation of the cultural and natural heritage referred to in paragraph 2 and 4 of Article 11, if the states on whose territory it is situated so request. Every state party, Article 11 of the Convention says that every state party to this convention shall, in so far as possible, submit to the World Heritage Committee an inventory of a property forming part of the cultural and natural heritage situated in its territory and suitable for inclusion in the list provided for in paragraph 2 of this article. This inventory, which shall not be considered exhaustive, again repeat, this inventory, which shall not be considered exhaustive, shall include documentation about the location of the property in question and its significance. Number 2, on the basis of the inventories submitted by the states in accordance with the paragraph 1, the committee shall establish, keep up to date, and publish under the title of World Heritage List a list of properties forming part of the cultural heritage and natural heritage as defined in Article 1 and 2 of this convention, which it considers as having outstanding universal value in terms of such criteria as it shall have established. An updated list shall be distributed at least every 2 years. In Article 12 of the Convention, it has been clearly stated that the fact that a property belonging to the cultural or natural heritage has not been included in either of the two lists mentioned in paragraph 2 and 4 of Article 11 shall in no way be construed to mean that it does not have an outstanding universal value for the purposes other than those resulting from inclusion in these lists. In view of the Article 11, the list is submitted by states forming part of the cultural and natural heritage, but The list of the inventory shall not be considered exhaustive, and the world community may take up any property considering its outstanding universal value for the purposes of inclusion in the list of World Heritage List under Article 12 of the Convention, which says that the fact that a property belonging to the cultural or natural heritage has not been included in either of the two lists prepared by the state mentioned in paragraph 2 and 4 of Article 11 shall in no way be construed to mean that it does not have an outstanding universal value for purposes other than those resulting from inclusion in these lists. The criteria for selection in the World Heritage List: it is necessary that the sites must be of outstanding universal value and meet out the selection criteria, which includes, among others, a. to bear a unique or at least exceptional testimony to a cultural tradition or to a civilization which is living or which has disappeared. B. To be directly or tangibly associated with events or living traditions, with ideas or with beliefs, with artistic and literary works of the outstanding universal significance. In view of the above criteria, Jannatul Baqi and other Islamic history sites situated in Saudi Arabia deserve to be included into the World Heritage Site list. UNESCO cultural heritage includes artifacts. Cultural heritage of UNESCO includes artifacts, monuments, a group of buildings and sites, museums that have a diversity of values, including symbolic, historic, artistic, aesthetic, ethnological, or anthropological, scientific, and social significance, which were created in the past and still have historical importance, are considered as heritage. The demolition of Jannatul Baqi, Jannatul Mualla, and other historical places of historical and religious importance of Islam is a crime committed to the heritage, because heritage is our legacy from the past that we have lived with today and what we pass on to the future generations. Our cultural and natural heritages are both irreplaceable sources of life and inspiration. The Saudi Arabia government has about 16 official heritage sites but has not included the Islamic history and heritage sites. It has been reported by the Art newspaper that Saudi Arabia may boast four UNESCO World Heritage Sites, but none is an Islamic monument. Art newspaper dated 19th November 2015. The physical evidence of history provides authenticity of the historical figures, such as places and personalities, statues, buildings, monuments, graves, stones, objects, clothing, pottery, jewelry, etc. By destroying the historical places, the physical evidence of history of Islam has been destroyed. The United Nations Security Council, in its resolution number 2347 of 2017, condemned the unlawful destruction of cultural heritage, including the destruction of religious sites and artifacts, and looting and smuggling of cultural property from archaeological sites, museums, libraries, archives, and other sites, notably by terrorist groups. It further urged member states to develop broad law enforcement and judicial cooperation in preventing and counter trafficking in cultural property, and called upon member states to consider adopting a number of measures specified in the resolution. Destruction of heritage is a war crime. The concept that destruction of cultural heritage is a war crime is not new. The concept has started since Franco-Prussian War of 1870-71. In the criminalization of the intentional destruction of cultural heritage, University of Technology, Sydney, it has been examined in detail that how modern international law is protecting world heritage, the cultural heritage of all humanity. By criminalizing the intentional destruction of cultural heritage, the modern international law has prohibited the deliberate seizure, destruction, or damaging of cultural property. The destruction of Strasbourg Cathedral and Library during the Franco-Prussian War of 1870-71 and the ensuing public outcry led to an international conference in mid-1874, which adopted the International Regulation on the Laws and Customs of War, known as Brussels Declaration. It provided that during belligerent occupation, all seizure or destruction of all willful damage to institutions dedicated to religion, charity, and education, the art and sciences, historic monuments, work of art, and science should be made subject to legal proceedings by the competent authorities. The first binding international obligations for the protection of cultural heritage related to the rules of war emerged from the series of international conferences held in 1899 and 1907. The regulations were annexed to the Convention 2 with respect to the laws and customs of war on land, 1899 Hague Convention 2, and Convention 4 respecting the laws and customs of war on land, 1907 Hague 4th Convention, and were recognized by all civilized nations. The International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg in 1945 has also recognized it. The importance of the protected cultural site or object is not determined exclusively by the state where it is located. Rather, it extends to people. This definition is applied to the two protocols to the convention. Article 1, Protocol for the Protection of Cultural Property in the Event of Armed Conflict, First Hague Protocol, 14th May 1954, and Article 1b, Second Protocol to the Hague Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property in the Event of Armed Conflict, 1999 Hague Protocol, 26 March 1999. It should be also kept in mind that the convention applies to the international and non-international armed conflicts both. In para 1 of the executive summary of the policy on the cultural heritage of June 2021 of International Criminal Code, it has been stated that this policy is intended to enhance the protection of cultural heritage. The International Criminal Code was founded on the recognition that all peoples are united by common bonds, their cultures pieced together in a shared heritage and concern. And this is delicate mosaic may be shattered at any time. The Rome Statute confers upon the court jurisdiction over crimes against or affecting cultural heritage, complementing international law governing the protection of cultural heritage and associated human rights. The protection of cultural heritage has been a long standing concern of the international community and is reflected in the governing instruments of the international military tribunals at Nuremberg. The International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia and the extraordinary chambers in the courts of Cambodia, all of which have jurisdiction over particular crimes related to cultural heritage, is specifically cultural property. Though the government of Saudi Arabia has not signed the Rome Statute, but about 123 countries have signed it. In para 14 of this report, it has been stated the two provisions of the statute that are most directly applicable to the attacks on cultural heritage are the war crimes set out in Article A to B9 and A to E4, which apply to international and non-international armed conflicts respectively. Among other objects, they proscribe intentionally directing attacks in armed conflict against certain types of buildings and monuments which fall within the broader definition of cultural property. However, since cultural property itself only touches on the tangible aspect of human culture, these provisions still reflect only part of the protection which may be afforded by the crimes in the statute to cultural heritage. As conceived in this policy, indeed, attacks against or affecting cultural heritage may constitute or relate to numerous other crimes under the statute. The term cultural heritage thus more properly reflects the rich corpus of human achievement that the statute and international law seek to protect. As such, this policy utilizes the more expansive term cultural heritage in order better to address the numerous ways in which attacks against or affecting cultural heritage may constitute or relate to diverse crimes within the jurisdiction of the court, thereby enhancing the protection afforded to such aspect of human heritage. In para 17 of the report, it has been stated the office further views cultural heritage as a bedrock of the cultural identities and endorses the understanding that crimes committed against cultural heritage constitute first and foremost an attack on a particular group's identity and practices, but in addition an attack on an essential interest of the entire international community. Crimes against or affecting cultural heritage often touch upon the very notion of what it means to be human, sometimes eroding entire swaths of human history, ingenuity and artistic creation. In view of the Article A2B9 of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Code, the demolition of historical buildings belonging to religion is a war crime. Cultural genocide. This had also been echoed in the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia that was established in 1993, which considers the destruction of religious buildings equivalent to the cultural genocide. When the Taliban blew up the Bamiyan Buddhas in Afghanistan in 2001, they were met with international condemnation. The response to the going on demolition activity in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, by contrast, has been decidedly muted, and the international community is silent. Over the last few years, mosques and key sites dating from the time of Holy Prophet Muhammad have been knocked down or destroyed, as have Ottoman era mansions, ancient wells and stones, bridges. Over 98% of the kingdoms and religious sites have been destroyed since 1985, estimates the Islamic Heritage Research Foundation in London. It is as if they wanted to wipe out history, says Ali Al Ahmad of the Institute of Gulf Affairs in Washington, D.C., reported by Time by Mr. Carla Power on November 14, 2014. In view of the Article 11 of the Convention, read with Article 12 of the UNESCO Convention, the world community take up this issue of restoration and reconstruction of Jannatul Baqi and other religious sites, considering its outstanding universal value for the purposes of inclusion of these places in the list of World Heritage List. Therefore, the demolition of Jannatul Baqi and other religious sites is a war crime under the international law and a cultural genocide. It is the responsibility of the international community and every prudent man, without any consideration of religion, caste, creed, race, or country, to oppose this act of demolition of religious sites in Saudi Arabia and raise his voice of protest against this action against the law, and demand for the reconstruction and restoration of all destroyed and demolished sites, so that the wrong committed in the past to the cultural, religious, and historical heritage is rectified. Thank you, sir. With these words, I finish my talk on the culture and historical heritage related with the Jannatul Baqi vis-a-vis international law. In the last but not the least, I will request to all the viewers who have yet not subscribed the channel, may kindly subscribe the channel and like and share this video, so that we get an encouragement and can put some more videos for your information. Thanking you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.